Enjoy this replay from the Wild Soul Gatherings 2024 Live Summer Summit.
Okay. George. Here's someone
Wow.
suffering from the epitome of a migraine headache. Oh my God, you're sitting there. It isn't working. I don't know what to do. Can I do? Help me, help me, help me, help me. You know what I mean? Those swords are ladder up, man. You've got all these tools. You're sitting in the abundance symbol of all this abundance and greatness. And here's the meaning of this card way down here, right there. There's Orlando Bloom. There's Johnny Depp. There's Basil Rathbone. There's Errol Flynn. They're wailing. They're dancing. They're poking and stabbing and all these other kind of things. But you know what? You're doing it to yourself. In this image, there's nobody else there. It's just about you.
Enjoy this Wild Soul Gathering production. I'm Dr. Sandra Marie. Pour yourself a really tall glass of spiritual curiosity and join me for the Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast. In the spirit of happy hour, cheers to some new insights, peace, revitalization, and perhaps an aha moment that may change your life. I hear you. How are you?
That is so cool, being heard. And we all strive to be heard, you know? Everybody's got a message, you know, everybody wants to know that people are paying attention. And that's great. It's great to be back and see you again. I have to tell you, I'm going to have a private conversation because you know what? That Heather was just so fabulous. I'm scared. I want to tell you that right now. I don't, you know, you don't want to go out and follow James Earl Jones, and it's exactly what I feel like right now. Because I'm sitting in the green room and I'm listening to her presentation, and it's wow, is all I can say. She was great. She was great. Absolutely.
A lot of powerful energy, but honestly, you're your own special self. So right now we're gonna our next presentation, we are here live, is with Reverend Joe Geores. He is a master tarot card reader, and he's going to be talking about demystifying the tarot. So welcome to Spirituality Explained, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. Thank you for letting me be here. And thank you to everyone out there. Thank you. I want to start off by stressing this is all about you guys, and there's very little to do with us. Without you, there is no message. It's like when the tree falls in the forest and there's no one there. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration and listening. And here goes.
Here it goes. Yeah. So a little bit about you. You're a gifted medium as well as a tarot card person. You are very skilled with it. You are a master reader, but you also do a lot with teaching. And you really bring an eclectic background to your spiritual path. You have studied and worked with the tarot for over 3 decades. So a little bit of experience there. I think that you come with some street cred as you're going to be talking about this. And I would say your readings, as well as your work with pendulums, Reiki, your transmedium, help you provide insight and guidance when you're working with people. So I think today's going to be exciting. And I will have to say, Joe, for me, it is always a treat when we have a moment to reconnect. You're just full of so much information, and you come with all this history that you bring with it, along with the wisdom. I always learn something new and walk away with an aha. So I do want to encourage everyone who's listening to this to introduce themselves in the chat, say where you're from. We're very open to any questions or comments. A lot of folks have a lot of questions about the tarot, and this is really a great opportunity to ask these questions because, as I just said, we have a fella here who's been doing this for over 3 decades.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's been a great journey, and I think it's awesome. It talks to something that's been going on within human society for, politely, I would say, tens of thousands of years. That pesky science and archaeology and sociology, they're just getting in the way again because they're pushing the boundaries in all directions in quantum physics, in sociology, in history, archaeology, and they're now pushing human civilization back far beyond 5,000 years, far beyond what we've ever been able to conceive, what with archaeology going on in Turkey and in Europe, all around the world. This is an amazing time to be alive. And throughout that time in history, man has striven, or strived rather, I don't even know if striven is a word, but strive to connect and
We can make it work.
Yeah, we could. We all have questions about our existence and afterlife and things like that. How come this happens, or just plain old give thanks and stuff. And that's been something we've been doing literally for almost hundreds of thousands of years. And this is one of the things I discovered in working on my class for the United Metaphysical Churches. And I really love this. There's an archaeological dig that was, I don't know if it's ongoing, but this goes back to 2021, in Israel, the Middle East there. They were uncovering some artifacts in an archaeological dig, and they came across these bones. And what was exciting to the archaeologists about the bones, and they call them the Rami bones, there were these markings on these bones, but they're not the markings of a hunter who has had a kill and is now cleaning the kill to eat. These are specific markings, specifically placed, completely different from any other marking you would expect to see in that case. And what the archaeologists and sociologists have come up with is that this is perhaps an example of the hunter-gatherer giving thanks to the animal for its sacrifice and giving thanks to spirit for the abundance and stuff. And this is amazing stuff because the dig is dated to 120,000 years ago. So for at least that long and even further back, man has been using symbols to communicate, help things make sense in their day-to-day world. And that's kind of what tarot is all about, because it's pictures and it's things that trigger the subconscious to connect, much like, all the visuals around us and even the audio signals around us. When you, I don't know, go to a famous museum, Philadelphia Museum of Art, Museum of Natural, the Met in New York, or perhaps the National Gallery, you're going to be exposed to all these images and all these pictures and all these things. And after a while, things are going to start to resonate to you. Perhaps you like this, you don't like that, this clicks. I feel something from that. And you move forward from that to the things that are around us, these little guys here that we carry with us that have all these images on them, and the TV and the movies and things. These are all moving pictures. These are pictures sending messages, helping us connect and working out that resonance, if you will, to not just help us feel better, but to be better. Thank you, Melissa. I'm going to give you a shout out now. I see your name pop up there, and she is just brilliant. She's a real dear friend of mine. She's been around for a very long time, and I had a feeling, I heard somewhere that you have her coming up in day 3, maybe?
I do. She's going to jump us off on our final day, day 3, her and her mom. And that's going to be a special one.
Oh my goodness. You folks, please, this is a shout out to Melissa and her mother. Please hang out for that. They're going to be really fantastic. They really, really, really well. And thank you, Sandra, for populating this blog here, this summit. This is a great thing. But going back to the talk of symbolism, we all feel isolated. We don't really feel connected sometimes. But just talking about cave time, or prehistoric, let's say, symbolism, there's also someone who's taken the cave art from around the world and codified it, compared it, laid it down. Oh, these are feather symbols, these are squirrels, these are this, that. It turns out there's an alphabet, if you will, globally. All these cave things that they all refer to different. They all refer to things in the lifestyle, in the experience of the people that drew them, and it's a way of communication, as it turns out, globally. And this is deep science, and I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is amazing stuff. And so that's where my theories come from. That's where I think that it's spiritual in nature, because it helps us connect and help us bring spirit into us, because it's always out there. Spirit's always out there. At least for me, working with tarot over all these times, it's helped me open up to the beauty around me, to the resonance around me. You can always find something to be happy about, always find something that's abundant, always find some connection to help you out. I remember walking my dog, walking down the street one morning, and all of a sudden I was completely stunned by the beauty of the sunlight coming across the lawn to my left, to my right. There's all these brilliant dots of light, and like there's a sea of pearls and diamonds, and I'm like, wow, that's great. Now, how many of us really take the time to notice that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And something like that can happen to you all the time. And that's one of the things work with tarot can help you do is open up, slow down, and see the stuff that's happening around you. It's actually a very, very good thing. It's not just
Can you
about,
expand on that a little bit?
oh, yeah. The more you work with something, it's like the old joke, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. The more you work with a given discipline, and there's so many out there, they're all correct to someone. But in terms of working with art and tarot to connect, the more you work with it, the more used you get used to using symbolism you get. You know, we start out with things like the red traffic light or the stop sign or the men's or ladies' room signs, different kinds of symbolism there. And we get wrapped up in modern life and get so busy that we don't really think much about all the different flowers or all the birds or the various trees or the sky or anything like that. It turns out, going back to flowers, okay, because I started out with talking about the drops of dew on the grass, and all of a sudden, spirit clicked on me, hit me like, oh my goodness, I am really so abundant. Thank you so much. Turns out in Victorian times, flowers had meaning. So, you know, sometimes we think of the previous societies as being restrictive or constrictive or something like that, but there were ways to communicate. You could send flowers to people that would have a message because of what the meaning of the flower might be. And I'd love to be able to wax poetic and talk about it for an hour, but it's a huge subject. And I can't remember Martin Scorsese's movie's name. Oh my goodness, this is terrible. There's a Martin Scorsese movie about Victorian times. In it, protagonist sends a female lead yellow roses. Now, why that's important is that, you know, you didn't write down that we would like to get together and have a relationship because society would just roll right over you like a steamroller. That's not the way you do it. But you could send that message because the yellow roses would say, gee, I'd love to get a relationship with you. I'd really like to, what have you. And, you know, that would be a way of communicating, again, using the symbolism of flowers. Or rosemary, for example. Rosemary is known for remembrance rather. So you might send in a bouquet some rosemary to say, you know, I do remember you fondly, or I haven't forgotten you, or please remember me, or something like that. So that's just touching the iceberg of symbolism, for example, that, you know, I stumbled on in my research, but, you know, how many people really know that? It's not quite a lost art, I don't think, but it's not overly well known in everybody's circle. I'm sure there are gardeners out there. I'm sure there are people who are into flowers and plants and things that get this, that understand the meaning of it and stuff. It's awesome, awesome, deep. I have relationships with birds. Sounds weird, but when I see cardinals, I know it's my mother coming to visit me.
Okay.
It's a symbol for my mother. Now, it's also a symbol for a dear friend of ours who's transitioned. One of her guides was a red bird. And so when I see cardinals, I know that someone's out there tapping on the window, so to speak, trying to say hello and get my attention or just remind me that they're there. Because as we know and believe, that we're never truly alone. I mean, we're always surrounded by energy. We're surrounded by those people on the other side. We're surrounded by those who've come before us, and they're there to support us. So once you start to embrace symbolism and you wander through your day-to-day life, it's perhaps a way to make it easier because now you're reminded that, oh my goodness, you know, I've got some support here. I've got this, I've got that. And especially when we need it, least expect to get it, that sort of thing, you know?
That makes so much sense. I feel like some of that has just gotten watered down and commercialized. I mean, we have different roses to symbolize different anniversaries, that kind of thing. And I think it's what you said is a lot of it is the paying attention or being able to open ourselves up to a lot of these synchronicities, right? Because some of them are synchronicities. Most recently, I was down in Florida actually just last week, and I was walking along a condo aisle with my brother, and we went by, and there was literally a penny on this lower windowsill, and I looked at it. And we walked by again. I picked it up and I handed it to him and I said, "This is Dad." I said, "Dad is whenever these random pennies show up." And he sort of like looked at me like, "Yeah, right." And I said, "That penny wasn't there when we first walked down. The penny's there now, and it's in a very random place. And he's like, "Oh, you're right." He says, "Just trust me when I taught you it's Dad getting our attention." So it's just paying attention to those things. I totally agree that synchronicity. So, one of the things I was talking about is in the summit, two of the topics that have really floated to the top have been intuition and synchronicity. So, I'm paying attention to that because it's a message that maybe I need to be getting the word out about intuition or having more conversations about that with the different forums that I have with the podcast. And then the other is synchronicities. They happen all the time, but are we aware of them?
Some of us are. Some of us, I know I fall into this category. Some of us are still continually working on making sure you're in connection like that, because we all slip up at times when, we just don't get it. We try to micromanage our lives, and spirit just smiles calmly and goes, okay, but really, and we, to the best of our ability, just know that we have a plan and know it's going to work. But and it's just not working. We just don't understand why, and we butt heads with it. But in the end, we finally just go, that's it. I'm putting it in the hands of spirit. It all comes together. It all just flows. It all just flows.
So we've talked about the tarot as a spiritual tool, that it's, more than just asking a question. Can you just touch a little bit on reasons why people initially come a lot of times or are drawn to the tarot or a reading, and sort of how that might transform into something a little bigger?
People tend to come because they need support, really. They need support in healing. It's a way to think of this. They're troubled by events, by thoughts about things, upcoming maybe, or things that have passed, and they just need some guidance, really. And from there, it can move forward into, I think all my readings move forward into the spiritual realm. I used to have a pattern that I used when I started my readings, just to get us in the mood and get us to connected. And I talk about it not being casino exercise. It's just to shuffle the cards. It's not about dexterity or things like that. But occasionally I've been known to say that, we're going to try to get to the questions you've got here, and we can all, how do they used to phrase it about, unfortunately, they're not going to give me the lottery numbers, and, everybody's looking for tall, dark, and handsome, and you're unfortunately going to have to pay taxes for the rest of the time. And everybody would jiggle and laugh and things like that, and would break the ice, if you will, and get into a connective spirit kind of thing. I don't remember my readings, which is a pretty good deal. I believe in just being isolated from that. But I can say it's my feeling that so many people come for generally the same reason, not the specific reasons. They are looking for assistance and help. They may feel, to some ways, I used to phrase this as like a marble in a Cuisinart. You feel completely overwhelmed by life, let's say, or the subject at hand. And you're just looking to see if there's a way of getting some clarity, getting some feel for perhaps a way to move or some better understanding of the things around you. And that's what I do. That's what we do. It's non-judgmental, first of all. We take the cards and use those images to connect. And you can have you have fairly universal agreement on what the cards mean. And I go through this in my classes. I have to caution us when we cards mean, because it's much like the way we learned to read. Way back when, at least in the dark dawn of time, the cave people, and when I was learning to read, we started out with things in these books called, there were readers, and I remember the word see Spot run, and there'd be a little dog there, or see Dick with a balloon, or something like that. And you start from these really rudimentary, single, very few word declarative sentences. But from that beginning, over time, of course, we get to things like what light upon yon window breaks, and Shakespeare, and incredible poetry and things like that. And tarot is the same way. It's great to have a fundamental basis from which to start. The cards mean this. The King of Swords means that. One of the 6 spooky tarot cards comes up. Death Tower, and I'm going to not touch on that. It's another lecture. But when they come up, and there's a good meaning, perhaps, when you start out in the book or the chart. But as you go in time, the level gets deeper. And maybe that definition today of the Four of Cups is not precisely what's going on, if you're open to that interpretation, because it'll trigger something in the channel, myself, or whoever's doing this, and move you a little bit further, move you more into a zone that might resonate better to the client, and actually help with communication, help with clarity, help with, hopefully, help with the issue at hand. Now, I say it that way because I learned a long time ago that if I understand and get exactly what I'm saying in a reading, this is wrong, forget it, I'm on the wrong page, I have to go somewhere else. Because this is not about me, it's about the person, it's not about my judgment, it's not about anything. I'm merely like a little monkey looking for a banana. I'm sitting here saying what I hear, what my spirit guides are telling me, and relating that. I don't know the details of what these people are going through or the clients are going through, and I don't necessarily want to or need to. That's for you to deal with. That's your business. If you tell me, that's fine. If you don't, it's fine too. But they walk away telling me that I've gotten some clarity, and I'm like, great. And it happens again and again. And someday when I crack the code and figure out how it all works, maybe I'll stop doing this, but I haven't been able to do that since. It's truly a mystical experience that's been going on in what you can think of maybe as, I'd call it the modern tarot since the 1400s when it appears in Italy. But now there's some perhaps difference of opinion on the edge of thought. Some people are saying it could have happened earlier. It has a lot to do with playing cards, which tarot cards are a form of. They're discovering, the deeper they delve, archaeology and research and history, they're finding estate records much earlier than the 1400s showing playing cards available in Spain and in other cultures that, who knows? It's been going on for quite some time, and so.
Wow, that's really interesting. That's interesting that it keeps going back further and further. So I did read something somewhere once where someone said the tarot was part of the New Age movement. And I was like, oh my goodness. It is so much more older. It's been around a much longer time. But more recent, when you get into different tarot decks or a tarot deck, you get a little booklet that comes with it now that explains the card. So if you pull the card, you can read the booklet. So your thought about using the booklet versus intuition?
I thought about everybody's got intuition. It's something, I mean, I used to have this discussion about, is it environment or is it genetics? I mean, everybody in some form has a musical ability. Okay, you can hum, you can whistle, you can kind of sort of maybe carry a tune like I can.
I won't own that because I can't.
But
Usually.
you can just go, Tito. I mean, man, that's music. It's very humble, but it's music nonetheless. There are a few people out there that are more like Beethoven, and they may have more intuitive connection, but the possibility is there in all of us. When you start a spiritual journey, I'll reflect on this by talking about my parents. My parents were these crazy, wonderful people that were kind of out of time and space when I was growing up because they had these differing opinions, and one of which was that we really should be able and could do anything we wanted to do, just go out and try and be good at it, And I come from a Roman Catholic upbringing. I had to go to Catholic school and things like that because that's what they sent me. But there was a reason for it. And they were kind enough to sit us down and explain to us, listen, this is what we're going to do. You're going to get this. And, you can continue to believe in it or use it as a baseline to go explore and find out what makes you you. But we want you to have a baseline because if you don't have one to build a frame of reference, you're just sort of wandering around. So please do this. And the rest is history. I work in the spiritualist church now. I still believe in everything I've found out. I've found out so much about religion that I don't know really what category I fit in. But without that baseline, I might not be able to do this. So the book lit that comes with the card deck, I think is important because
Okay.
you are getting a baseline for that particular universe created by that deck. I happen to like the Rider Waite Coleman Smith deck. That's the deck I've been using in my professional work from the beginning. It really clues me in. But there's a deck that's out there that I like that is at least 180 degrees in a different direction, called the Voyager Tarot by James Wanless. Beautiful imagery, unbelievable, great guy. It's good to see his philosophy, if you will, and his baseline, if you will, when you use the deck, because now you're opening yourself up to intuition. You're building the zone where intuition can start to work within you. You know, it helps to have that baseline to really bring it out. You know, you can, you know, you're going to start and say, okay, well, this card means that. Okay, so these three cards would come out to this sentence. That's a great way to start. See, spot, run. But the more you work with a given deck, the more you work with a given tool of any kind, the better you're going to get at interpreting it, the better you're going to get with resonating to it, much like any tool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. So we had Sony Singh talk yesterday about demystifying oracle cards, which there's some similarities to the tarot deck. And when we talked about the oracle cards, is there like a living energy that goes with it? Or, you know, a lot of people don't like you to touch their cards or they clear their cards. So is there a living energy actually with the deck, or is it energy that's being transferred?
Yes. My deck has energy. I feel all decks have energy. If you walk out on stage and pick up the Edge's guitar, you'd probably get your fingers broken because that's his axe. That's his tool. That's what he plays. You don't mess with Keith Richards. Keith Richards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all artists, all people have their own instrument, if you will. And by using it, you've begun a bond. You've begun to create a universe, if you want, with those instruments that help you now resonate. And this is interesting because, you know, I'm gonna continue with this. I'm digging myself a hole here, boy, but I'm gonna continue with this because, you know, you walk out there and you see them and they hit those chords and, you know, it's jumping jack flash. You're not really expecting to say that, wow, Keith Richards is having a spiritual experience. And I would beg to differ because he's been doing this a really long time. It's his practice, it's his life. It's one of the reasons he gets up in the morning. And those instruments that help him, audio, nature in the field, get that message out there, get their message out there, have a life of their own, if you will. That's why it's so important to them, you know, and it's so important to respect them. If for no other reason that it's polite, you know, you don't go, you know,
Yeah.
manhandling people's stuff without permission, you know. And I think some of that is it too. But yeah, I mean, my tarot deck is much like anybody's kitchen knife, any carpenter's hammer or plane or anything like that, because you build a relationship with the things that help you connect and do work your art, you know. And I think they should be respected, everybody's stuff. And I know you're connected to it.
So we do know that I think we agree that the tarot deck is a spiritual tool. Do you think that it's a tool that could be used to help someone move along on a spiritual journey, pull them either into that journey in a more conscious way or help them understand the path a little more?
Oh, it's helped me. Yes, I'm an audience of, and in the audience of one that I am, 100% of the people have had that happen. Yeah, absolutely. I think it can pull you and it can help. It's, you know, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble when this is played back. I'm telling you right now, here goes. When you look at the religions in the world, reason for being is to connect you spiritually, the organized religions. And I'm not limiting that to a number. Right? In my definition, that's actually a very broad realm of faith and belief. In like Islam, they do not have graven images. But in their discipline, they have these incredible geometrics that are like mandalas that you would also find in the Indian religion, the Hindi, and religions from the Asian element, So there is a way of connecting that way. And then when you come to the Western religions, like in Catholicism and some of the cathedrals and things, there's this incredible statuary, incredible stained art, and again, mosaics and things. And all of these things exist to either remind you of a story or to connect you better, to help you on your spiritual way. And from that, we get to art. Art does the same sort of thing. Art can be very controversial and make people angry and stuff, but it's also there to resonate and help make you think and help make you connect. And that's one of its functions, and that's what it does. I would take this out as far as that's the word, indigenous peoples around the world, their belief systems. Because if you look at the Native American, indigenous Americans, we've got to be correct here. I don't want to make anybody angry, but in the Southwest, there's the sand painting, which has a function within the spiritual belief and healing and growth of this people. The shaman will come in, the practitioner will come in and create the sand painting, and the person might sit in it or whatever this ritual is and move it forward. Or, in another part of the United States, and there might be symbolism on a shield or in a cloak or around them that would make that connection. So again, it comes back to a universal thing of this as an art form, which is a very important spooky card, which happened to be on the bottom of the deck, and I wish I could have staged that. But, that has a way of drawing us in and getting us connected and moving to a higher self, a higher being, a higher place. Help us get through things, help us have some meaning and stuff like that.
No, and of course that wasn't random that you pulled that up. But when you talk about that, because that's my other question, because people in a lot of my conversations absolutely have a load of curiosity about the tarot, about the oracle, about a lot of the different cards, but there's a hesitancy, and there seems to be a fear with that, and sometimes it's hard for them to language it. But they're like, yeah, I want to do it, but I'm afraid. Where do you think that's driven from, and do you think that's always been around?
I think it's been around since sometime after the powers that be. I'm trying to be really politically correct here. I don't want anybody knocking on my door. But if you look at history,
I won't tell it where you live.
Constraints. Thank you. There are constraints against practices in the doctrine and dogma. And around the 1400s, when tarot becomes popular as a game, but also as a fortune-telling tool in Italy, there were constraints in papal bulls and proclamations and things that you couldn't go to a fortune teller, you couldn't go to an astrologer, but they were never mentioned. And it turns out that until later on in history, all of a sudden, it became a problem for you to use these pasteboard things. Might have had something to do with the revolt against taxes on pasteboard. I don't really know.
Maybe.
But nonetheless, the people that were running the show basically dictated, no, this is not good. Over time, it's been repeated and been repeated and been repeated and been repeated. So when you grow up, you learn that these symbols are good, but don't be going over there. That they're not. We don't do those. And for you, that may be valid, but as you grow and you open up and you start to crack the mold, so to speak, maybe you find out that this particular genre resonates and works to you. I mean, this is not to say that oracle cards are not important. I mean, they're very important because they work for other people. They work for them. Maybe tarot doesn't work for them. Maybe tarot and oracle cards doesn't work for the third person on the Zoom meeting on that frequency bandwidth, because for them, it's rune stones. You know what I mean? The runic stones and the etching on those just flips that switch inside, and all of a sudden they get that feeling from them. You know what I mean? So it's gotten a bad rap, tarot has, in a way, and you'll see it in all the 6 spooky cards in the tarot deck, because let's face it, there's a James Bond movie that comes into my mind, but you've seen them in art and literature, where the person turns over the tarot card, and you hear that crescendo, and you can hear the intake of breath in the audience. You're like, oh my goodness, because it's the death card, or one of the other 6 spooky cards, one of which might be called the Eight of Swords, which doesn't look like a very popular or positive card to begin with, but nonetheless, there's a great meaning behind it. I'll talk to you in a minute.
Okay.
It turns out that the 6 spooky cards are death, the Tower, the Devil in the major arcana, and below that might be the 5 of Pentacles, the 10 of Swords, certainly, the 9 of Swords, and possibly the 8 of Swords, which is volunteered for the lecture today, standing right there. We're going to leave the minor arcana cards down to the side for a second and talk about the big 3, Death, the Tower, and the Devil. And they're spooky looking, man. I mean, we've all got the concept of the death card in our mind, the skull and crossbones, the specter coming across the landscape, and desolation and things. The tower is a building being hit by lightning and by people falling off. And oh man, that doesn't look positive today either. The devil is being held with this big ogre guy kind of standing there, growly wally, not looking very positive, not working out for me today. But in reality, those 3 cards talk about change, the various phases of change and growth from different perspectives. And again, I'm working with the Rider-Waite deck, a Coleman Smith deck there, but it occurs thanks to the universal messaging, the universal meanings of these cards in the various other tarot universes, at least when I look at them and I resonate. Because death talks about evolution. It talks about change occurring in a naturally evolving way, growth, and one's foot in front of the other, that sort of thing. The Devil is a great card. Even when you get the Devil in a reading with me, I'm excited for you because it talks about you taking back your power. You're basically saying, nope, I got this. When you study that card in the deck, nobody's really tied up or anything like that. They're all just sort of accepting what's going on. You don't have to. You can institute change and growth in your life at the drop of a hat. Well, at any time, drop of a hat might be too quick. By simply saying, this doesn't work for me. I'm not judging it for you guys. If it works for you guys, that's fine. But this path in my life isn't working. I'm going to make a change. So that's the 2 ways that the Tower, with the bolt of lightning hitting the building and people falling down on the rocks below, oh my goodness, is another great card because, you're talking about listening before and micromanaging your life and saying, I've got this, I'm spirit, I know. And spirit goes, Joe, come on, I've got this plan for you. And goes, I've got this, I know what's coming. Okay, but we didn't want to consider our idea. And they, no. And you get caught in that, somebody in my experience once called the velvet rut. The velvet rut exists in our lives when we have things to complain about. Maybe they're justified, maybe it's an opinion, but we complain. They're not working out. It's not good, but it's so comfy here. I don't know if I really want to make a change. I could complain a little more. And Spirit's got a plan for us. And, the clock is ticking, even though their time works are different. They might be going, come on, Joe, finally they just go, all right, you asked for it. And bam, they blow you right out of there. And they blow you on to growth and things like that. And that's what I call externally induced change, and it's all good. It's all about growth and moving forward with those cards. Linking in it. I haven't talked about the minors yet. You want me to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, the six spooky minor arcana cards.
Okay.
Well, they're not 6. I'll call it 6 overall in the deck, but the 10 of Swords is another card that people get. You can feel the air stop in the room. It's face down in the mud, sword sticking in your spine all the way up, and gloom and red and black sky. But the meaning in the card really comes from the horizon line way over there. It's all about the new beginning because this is finality defined. It is about being over. You've run the race. There it is. You've run the race. You've won. You've got it. It's all about not being face down in the mud, not being gloom and doom from the cloud, but the sunrise at the other side of that. Swords are air signs. They're tools. They got sharp edges, but they can be used as levers, ladders, all these things. Fencing. You're protected. and you've got a passel of tools to use to move forward with this. This is really good. It's time to get up, dust yourself off, and move forward. If you're in that Nine of Swords, maybe Spirit will be nice to, you know what? I can't make this stuff up. You know, that's intuition. I didn't structure that. I swear to you, I didn't structure this deck.
Okay.
Nine of Swords. Now, here's someone
Wow.
suffering from the epitome of a migraine headache. Oh my God, you're sitting there. It isn't working. I don't know what to do. Can I do? Help me, help me, help me, help me. You know what I mean? Those swords are ladder up, man. You've got all these tools. You're sitting in the abundance symbol of all this abundance and greatness. And here's the meaning of this card, way down here, right there. There's Orlando Bloom, there's Johnny Depp, there's Basil Rathbone, there's Errol Flynn. They're wailing, they're dancing, they're poking and stabbing and all these other kind of things. But you know what? You're doing it to yourself. In this image, there's nobody else there. It's just about you. So again, it's coming to terms with the idea that it's about you, and you really do have nothing to fear but fear itself. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, this is all good to know, because these are all cards that I pull on a more frequent basis than that.
It's all about building faith in yourself. You know, we're not given challenges for fun. We're given challenges to help grow when we come here. And it's kind of our fault, really, because we participated in the decision-making process that created this life that we're in, and we thought this was a good idea on the other side.
I know. So, yeah, no, I'm aware of all of that. So I have our next guest, Rick Hayes, in the green room here. Can I pull him on, and would you pull some cards for him? He's very curious about the tarot.
I'd be honored. I would be honored.
Okay.
It'd be great.
Rick.
Hello. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good evening.
Absolutely.
Hello,
Rick, this is
great to meet you.
Joe.
It's an honor and pleasure to meet you, Reverend. And I've been listening and embracing and engulfing everything you're sharing. So very, very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, because I, like many people, wander through life going, man, am I getting this right or not? I hope this is making sense to people, because, you know, I'm confused. And that's a good way to be as a reader, because if I'm confused and I'm thinking this isn't making any sense, it probably is, but it's just not making sense to me, because that's nothing to do with me. It has to do with you and people, you know, the messaging that you've got there, you know.
Well, I'm excited to see what you receive. And actually, I got the chocolate here with me ready to go. So let's do this.
All right. I'm clearing the deck. I'm putting this Rick Hayes energy on it. This pandemic way of doing things when we couldn't get together, which is kind of a neat thing. Mother, thank you. Come on, help me do great reading for a new friend, Rick here. The spirit of wisdom and understanding, truth. Thank you. Thank you, all the blessings and abundance. Thank you. I need you to pick a number from 1 to 5.
3.
And we start with the third card down. Queen of Cups energy. Really intuitive, really, as a human being, you're not moved to use blunt trauma first as the way to get anything done. You've got a great sense of sensitivity, a great connection, especially with the water sign of cups. Hugely powerful in your own right, but not necessarily, like I said, we have these concepts of man and woman and masculine and feminine, and they're kind of behavior things, whereas I define kings and queens as incredibly powerful, but the kings may be, you know, masculine and result to blunt trauma first before reasoning. And the female energy doesn't do that well. They are completely capable of blunt trauma in the time when it's needed to. It's a good balance there, I think. Next card down is 4 of Cups. What? Got it. I got it. I'm working with the word focused on. Hyper focus is a good thing, but be careful of that. There's something going on that requires your attention, but be careful of it encompassing all of your attention, if that makes any sense to you. Whatever, it's important, by all means, focus. I'm not saying don't focus on it, but be aware be aware that there's another piece to this that you're not expecting that's going to be coming out to you. Spirit's got your back, my friend. Spirit's got your back. And that's interesting. You twisted around that for me because I wasn't looking at it that way. If you, in your discipline, I'm sure this happens to you, they suddenly realign you and say, no, over here. Yeah. 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 Just be careful of that focus is important because it's a major arcana card. There's a statistic, a teaching, what have you, that says, without going into a long lecture about what your major arcana, what your minor arcana, and et cetera, and so forth, fundamental archetypes, but the greater the number of major arcana cards, because major arcana works on a DNA bedrock level way down deep in a given number of card reading, the greater the potential for change. But again, change of a really fundamental direction, not that I'm going to wear a black t-shirt today or be on a blog or something. It's like really, bang, like 90-degree change, let's say. And this is 1 out of 3, so it's a 33% chance. I think this is big and important. An important direction in your life. It's big and important, and you're paying attention to it, and it's going to work out great, I think. But definitely, not father figure, but be careful. Be careful of solidifying, if you will. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Be keep that flexibility. Keep this flexibility. Do you know what I'm saying? Because we have a trend here of getting more and more and more and more. I want to say like granite, like the granite in here, or like concrete, or dried concrete, or something dried. You know what I mean? Keep the flexibility. Keep the fluidity available, because that's going to be important in the resolution of this. If that makes any kind of sense whatsoever.
Okay. Absolutely.
2 out of 4. Okay, it's a very big deal for red. Yeah, I think this works out great for you. I mean, I got you, man, I got you guiding and leading. Guiding and leading is what I'm hearing. Guiding and leading. Okay. And doing a profoundly good job at that. Yeah. And I honor you for that, because
thank you.
The Hierophant, it's got that kind of, that official religion, biblical kind of looking at, teaching kind of thing. But it's not quite about that. It's about your guidance to people and the way you're going. I think you're moving in a new direction. I think this is going to be really, really great. I think you're going to be really, really great, because I've got red in this. These 3 cards, I've got red. As we're walking down this pathway, we're getting redder and redder and redder. And you're going to say, so what? Well, I'm heavily influenced for whatever reason, for a kid, Irish American kid from suburbia, by the Asian culture. And in the Asian cultures, red is so important. It's such an honor. It's an amazing color. It's high abundance, high good luck, high benefit. It's an amazingly important color, and you're getting more and more of that in here. So it's not like a danger zone. I think it's speaking to the abundance. It's speaking to the benefit. It's speaking to the positivity. Thank you. The positivity of that direction. Does that make any kind of sense to you?
It does. Absolutely does. It's making out these cards fill in the place with, it just what's been going on in the last 2-3 weeks for me. So it's all incorporating perfectly. So
I just want you both and everybody out here to know you're scaring the life out of me. We've never met. I mean, we're not even in the same part of I don't know where you are. I'm in the bottom of New Jersey here. And, this is where, but that, you see, this is why you say, why is it mystical? This is mysticism, man. This is like shamanism. This is like going back to the campfire and dancing to connect and talking to the animals, because we so desperately need them. You know what I mean? This is that kind of thing. And it's an amazing, amazing thing that works here. And, I'm sure it works for people with the Oracle card. I know it works with the runes. When this happens and connects like that, that's mind-boggling. It's still mind-boggling after 40 years. It's mind-boggling.
Well, I appreciate you pulling the cards, and it's again an honor to meet you. I thank Doc here for putting this summit together so we can meet. You're going to be a hard act to follow, but I'll do my very
Oh,
best.
believe me, the hard act to follow is Heather because I'm heavily into dogs. We've had Labrador Retriever for 40 years. Upstairs in the kennel is our latest Labrador Retriever, who's Lily. She's a really special puppy. She's going to be 2 years old in September. And I appreciate Heather's work with the canine archetypes because they do resonate to humans so much, and I've learned so much from my dogs. I can't even begin to go there. I mean, they're great. So, again, thank you, Sandra, for hooking Rick and I up. Thank you for letting me do this. This is really, truly an honor, and I mean, it's great. It's great.
Oh, but for me as well, and I want to use too for your service that you're giving to others as well on this world, and be going forward, Joe.
Thank you. You too, Rick. Thank you very much, man.
All right. I'm gonna get myself ready to try to follow you. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Put you back in that green room. See you in 5.
You were spot on with those darts.
Man, thank you. Thank you so very much.
What he's doing. This guy knows what he's doing, everyone.
Thank you all. Blessings to all of you, man. Blessings.
So just real quick as we're going to finish up here, Joe, that was super powerful. And I think actually I appreciate you doing that. Watching it in action, it's a whole different energy and explanation to it, right?
Oh,
So what do you got going now and what's coming down the road for you?
well, I'm told by the people around me that we're going to be doing more things like this. Currently, we might be hosting some things like that. We might be knocking on Dr. Sandra's door to see if she wants to
I'm here.
tap in and tune in with us. Working with the United Metaphysical Church, of course, and seminary programs. And I've been featured on, they have a little program every month called Thoughtful Thursday, which is an exploration of various forms of spirituality and thought. Happens once a month. I understand from the powers that be that I'm slated to do the December one.
Okay.
But I'm going to be featured, instead of doing tarot, I'm going to be featured doing trance channeling, which is an interesting development. I'm working more with that. We're attempting to put together perhaps a monthly meeting, either Zoom meeting type of thing, which would be speakers perhaps or messaging and perhaps different things every month. We're still exploring that sort of stuff. And if people, you see that little thing down there, Reverend Joe G at Comcast.net, if you want to contact me for readings or for classes or see if I have one, if I can put one together for you, please do not hesitate to reach out because I'm more than ready and willing to talk to you.
Okay, that sounds really exciting. Now make sure that I get that information out. I love that you're going through some changes and some different things are happening. It's really sort of interesting because I was really pulled to get the summit done on a bit of a short notice. And spirit, spirit, it's like talking to me again about September and January. January's not bad, right? You got a few months to take a deep breath, but September seems right around the corner. So I might be reaching out to you on your trance mediumship with that. And obviously there's a reason that it seems like there's more than one of us being nudged along this path. So the message clearly is a lot bigger than both of us for sure.
Oh, totally. And I honor you for doing this because the world needs it, needs more of it. I mean, we're faced with times that look questionable, put it that way, and it's scary to people. But I reassure you that, and I'm not the greatest student of any kind of history, but if you look at human history over time, I mean, we've been here before and we've managed to struggle our way through it. Oftentimes, a dear friend of mine, hopefully he coined it, I'm going to credit with him. But when we look in life and, we think it's not working out, we think like, the clue to be intuitive is that, you think you're being punished. You think you're being denied. And sometimes you're not being punished, but you're being protected. You know what I mean? And that's usually what it is. You're not being punished. You're being protected. So when you're running into that brick wall or the bump and it's not, the bump is not beating to the tune that makes you want to dance. You're like, what's going on? You're being protected maybe, so it's always a good idea to perhaps just say, thank you, Mother. I get it. I'm putting it in your hands and backing up. And usually you may find that it was a really good reason to back up.
Well, that's really important words to leave everyone with. So I'm going to marinate in that message a little bit. And until next time, Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for letting me do this. Thank you for including me, and hopefully you'll continue to do that. I honor and bless all of you out there. Thank you for supporting Dr. Sandra and her great work here, the rest of the presenters, and look forward to that guy, Dr. Rick, coming up. I'm telling you right now, I can tell his energy is just off the charts, and it's going to be it's just going to be another step in a great day. Thank you all, and blessings.
Okay. Till next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Wild Soul Gatherings Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. To learn more about our guests, please go to our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We're very eager to hear from our listeners what you thought of the episode, topics you might like us to cover in the future, your thoughts on spirituality, questions you may have. Please feel free to send us an email at wildsoulsgathering@gmail.com. This is your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love. Until we meet again, embrace your wild soul.